Hey everybody, John Carswell here. I am the co-host of the Tolkien Road podcast and the author of this book, Tolkien's Requiem, concerning Beren and Lúthien. There you go. I also write about Tolkien and other things over at truemyths.org. I just got my copy of Tolkien's newest book in the mail today, Beren and Lúthien. There you go, in all its glory, right there. This has been one of my favorite Tolkien stories for a long time. You can find the story of Beren and Lúthien in chapter 19 of the Silmarillion, and it's more of a short story there, and it's a standalone chapter that connects to the rest of the story. In my opinion, it's the best chapter in the Silmarillion, and next to The Lord of the Rings, it's probably my favorite of all of Tolkien's stories. So ever since this book has been announced, it's been a mystery exactly what it would be. So I wanted to give you a little sneak peek into what it apparently is. All right. The first big thing to say is that this is not exactly a novel-length treatment of the story like, say, Children of Húrin. All right. Children of Húrin was a novel-length version of the story of Turin Turambar, which is also found in the Silmarillion. And you could sit down and literally read it like you'd read any other novel. Okay. Now, Beren and Lúthien is not quite like that, all right? Beren and Lúthien is a little bit of a hybrid between that and the history of Middle-earth. So there's two things that Christopher Tolkien, in the preface to Beren and Lúthien, there's two things Christopher Tolkien says he was trying to accomplish with this. The first is he wanted to trace the evolution of the story because it's one of the earliest of Tolkien's Middle-earth tales, and it evolved significantly over the course of his lifetime. The second is he wanted to compile the various forms of the story into one book, because I think he realized that for most of us, the history of Middle-earth, while an amazing reference, is not the most readable thing that's been published under Tolkien's name. He loves this story. It's clear Christopher Tolkien loves this story, and it means a lot to him. I think it was one of the stories told to him from a young age by his father, and so this story holds a special place in his heart. So I think he wanted the world to have one compiled version of all the different ways in which this story had evolved. So it's pretty readable. It's not like the history of Middle-earth. You open it up and it's not exactly one story told chronologically. It's more of a several successive chapters that show the same story in different stages of its evolution, including some of the poetic stages. But you're not going to be able to just sit down and read it from start to finish like you would a regular old novel. A couple of other things to note about it. Alan Lee's illustrations are gorgeous. There's one with some giant cats in it. Booyah. Let's see. We got this other one of, who is that? That is hard to tell who it is, but if you look in the very front, it'll tell you who it is, but just a little sneak glimpse of that. So, anyway, so Alan Lee's illustrations that are throughout this thing are wonderful. You can see it will look awesome on your bookshelf. Okay. So also noteworthy, and I think this is really interesting, this is apparently going to be Christopher's last significant contribution to his father's legacy. He states as much in the preface. What that means for the future of Tolkien's legacy is anybody's guess. All right. It'll be really interesting to see how things play out if this is indeed Christopher's last hurrah in Middle-earth. All right. He's been hugely important to bringing so much of his father's work to the world after his father's death in the early 70s. We probably would not have the Silmarillion if it weren't for Christopher, and we wouldn't have the history of Middle-earth if it weren't for him as well. So Christopher has been huge, but he's apparently bowing out with this one and saying, this is the one I wanted to leave behind, my last one, right? Because that shows how important this story is to him. So, should you buy it? Yes. And if you don't already own a copy of the Silmarillion, you should buy the Silmarillion as well. I'm going to put links below the video on YouTube. I'll put links below the video on truemyths.org. You can go check it out. Buy it there. You need to own these books if you're a Middle-earth fan. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, I know the Silmarillion can be a little challenging to get into, but it's worth it. Go buy the Silmarillion, go buy this book, and have at it, okay? If you need a little further assistance, that's why I wrote this book a few years ago, okay? I actually wrote this without any idea that anybody was ever planning to do something like this. But this is a different book than what this is. This is more of a contemplation of the story of Beren and Lúthien, okay? It's going to help you get inside the different threads and understand how they all weave together so that you can then go back and read the Silmarillion. It's not going to give away everything about the Silmarillion. I didn't want to do that because I wanted people to go read it. That's the whole goal. That's the reason I wrote this thing, because you owe it to yourselves to read the Silmarillion. So that's the bottom line. Buy this book, buy the Silmarillion, okay? And if you need further help, buy this. You can also go to tolkienroad.com and find the Tolkien Road podcast. We have episodes on all the chapters from the Silmarillion. We have one standalone episode on just the whole of the Silmarillion, so you can understand the overarching scope of it. And we have a lot of other just good resources on Tolkien stuff over there. And you can also go to tolkiensrequiem.com to buy this, and there'll be links to that also and below the video. So yeah, that's everything I wanted to tell you today. You just need to go buy the book, right? You owe it to yourselves to buy the book if you're a Tolkien fan, and if you don't own the Silmarillion, you should buy that as well. All right, that's all I got to share with you guys today. Thanks for listening, and go check out, if you like what you saw here, go check out truemyths.org and tolkienroad.com and listen to the podcast. Thanks, everybody.